Good morning, guys. It's a beautiful in Chernobyl under the quarantine. It's just me and no one else. We are standing right now in the middle of the street, which was one of the main streets of Chernobyl town. It was called Lenina Street. But even in those days, it was not that crowded. It was a small place with small houses that you can see. So some private houses on the Lenina Street, and on the left side we have a very significant building. That's the building of the synagogue. The thing is that Chernobyl town, which is actually an ancient settlement, but for the centuries it used to be a Jewish settlement. So this is one of the local synagogues. You can see a fancy window, and what really impresses me are those birches that grow just from the walls. I'll come a bit closer if you have a chance to see it. So right now these birches are more noticeable. It's just amazing how the nature recovers from our activities, from human activities. And this building, since it was a religious building, either closed or turned into something else. Because in the Soviet Union, religion was basically almost illegal. I suppose that communism had to be our own and only religion. So in those days, this building was turned into a military recruitment office. And by the entrance, it had the Red Star. Red Star was the symbol of the Soviet army. And there is a joke that this is the only synagogue in the world that has not the David Star with the 6 corners, but the Soviet Star, the red one. And right now we're going to drive a bit further to the main street of Chernobyl town, which was called Soviet Street. And see some locations there and some buildings. Generally, Chernobyl was abandoned after the accident as the normal civil settlement. But after the accident, Chernobyl became kind of like the headquarters of the mitigation process. Some of the buildings were abandoned, some of the buildings became the offices of the military companies, of the decontamination companies, and so on. Also, quite soon you'll be able to see some water pipes that go above the roads, because radiation actually each year goes deeper and deeper in the ground. Have to fix those. So that is why after Chernobyl accident, all the water pipes for the buildings that still got maintained were turned to the pipes that go above the road. So as you can notice, the street of Lenina was not such a big street. It didn't have big apartment buildings. It didn't have any official buildings, with the acceptance of the synagogue, I suppose. And just around the corner there was the main street of this small town, which had a population of about 13,000 people at the moment of the accident. So we'll have a small ride. Right now on the corner we'll see a beautiful building, which unfortunately got quite ruined. Originally it was the medical college, the 2-story building on just in front of us at our 1 o'clock, this one. And we are turning into the Soviet street, the main street. So here are the pipes that I told you about going above the road. The building on the right side is one of the local scientific offices. The next building to our right, the white building, originally used to be the House of Culture, and after the accident it became very famous because that's the building where the trial for the operators of Chernobyl nuclear power plant was held. And here's the only remaining Lenin of Ukraine, because after the last revolution all the Lenin monuments in Ukraine were demolished, so that's the only one remaining, because basically we got back in time. Behind Lenin there is also the police station, which is not noticeable from here. Next building to our left is the local administration. That's the governmental department in charge of all the visits. And all the guys of Chernobyl really hope to pay all the salaries to us, because they owe us like 2 months already. But, let's hope for the best. And in front of us there is also some cars, so there is some life in Chernobyl. Chernobyl is under the quarantine at the moment, but some people still work here. For example, today we already worked for a very special route. We'll have a special route for the off-roaders, so Chernobyl tourists will have a chance to get to the places where they couldn't get to just using the regular buses. So for this purpose we'll this way. That's the alley with the names of all the resettled settlements, some like the Alley of Sorrow, and the signs on those just named villages and towns that were resettled from the area. So right now you'll be able to see quite a famous monument called the Angel with the Trumpet, because the thing is that in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, there is the story about 7 seals. And roughly it says that when the third angel is going to blare his trumpet, and a star is going to fall down on our planet, and 1/3 part of all the waters is going to get poisoned, so people who drink it die. The word Chernobyl itself roughly means wormwood plant. So religious people thought that in the Bible, so that is why when years after the accident, Ukrainian government decided to make this monument, they decided to make something symbolic. So here is our angel with a trumpet, who is warning us about the end of the world. Behind the angel, on the ground, there is the map of the exclusion zone. Exclusion zone consists of 10-kilometer zone, which is just in the center over there, and 30-kilometer zone, a bit closer to us. And each one of these gray metal things is just a candle holder located at one of the, for example, at the days of commemoration, people from those settlements have a chance to come here and put a candle at the place where they used to live. And just in front of us at our 12 o'clock, there is that alley that I told you about, the one which has the names of different settlements. So this place actually look like the normal road place, because when you drive through the country you have a chance to see that you're passing a village called, for example, Benivka. That's the one at the right. So village in Ukrainian. So we have all these settlements being named, and at the back side of each plate you're going to see right now that these are black crossed with red. So on this alley we also have some settlements which will have white sign crossed with red. It means that the settlement was resettled, but in case if people wanted to stay, they had this chance. And signs that are black crossed with red, like those that we pass right now, mean that people had to be resettled. That was mandatory. That is the main square of Chernobyl town. Green building at the opposite side is the local grocery store and local canteen for the employees. And just in front of us, behind the angel, there's also the administrative building on the right and the museum to Chernobyl disaster on the left. Before the accident, that was the original building of the movie theater called Ukraine. And right now that's a museum called the Wormwood Star Memorial Museum. Chernobyl in general right now is the only officially inhabited place in exclusion zone, That's the place where local employees like police officers, firefighters, ecologists, scientists, and administrative workers actually live on the shifts. Most likely they live here 15 days a month, and then for 15 days more they have to go home. And some people work here from Monday to Thursday, and then for the weekend they go home. So weekends that they have is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll drive a bit further through Chernobyl to show you a bit more. So when local employees live in Chernobyl, they live in the dormitories that were made out of the former apartment houses. So now we are going to pass again this museum that I just told you about, the Wormwood Star Memorial Museum. That's the building just in front of us. Some buildings of Chernobyl are completely abandoned. So for example, just in front of us there is the abandoned building on the left. Some local employees crossing the road, as you can probably notice. The museum to the left of the National Art and Ethnical Museum. And I just told you about the apartments that to our right hand side, the one with 5 floors, is one of the local dormitories right now. And the part with the red roof is one of the grocery stores. It's being called 100 apartment house just because the house has 100 flats. We have a comment from Freak, hi Freak, by the way, that he didn't see that part during the actual tour. Well, Chernobyl is actually quite big, and I suppose that if you would go on the 2-day tour, you would have a chance to some working industries, like for right now to our right side there is going to be the local gas station. It's going to look quite retro, if you know what I mean. So here's the sign that this is the gas station, and it really looks like some gas station from the retro American movie. Just wait a second. Here we go. Over there. Here is the gas station. The sign says gasoline. And right now we're going to make a short final stop during this stream at the welcoming sign to Chernobyl. In the Soviet Union, it was a very common thing to make welcoming signs that picture activities conducted in this area, because Soviet Union was a huge country. You would be driving through all of those settlements, you would have a chance to know where are you at. So again, the pipes for the water and heating that go above the road, so there is no chance that you would be digging the soil in case if you need to fix it. And just in front of us, here's the sign. So the blue letters are saying Chernobyl. There is the sign of the atom above the blue letters, as you can notice. Of course, in the center you can see the red hammer and sickle. The river to the famous ghost city, and the river of Pripyat goes through the town of Chernobyl. And over here on the right, there's also the white ship, because in those days there was a special ship which was almost like the river taxi that was going from Kiev through Chernobyl to the city of Pripyat. So that's why you can see that ship here. Also, there is the crane building the nuclear power plant, some cooling towers which were helping to cool down the reactors, and I suppose that around the hammer and sickle there is the sign of the torch, like the energy, enlightenment, and so on. So, you know, even in those days, whenever you would be passing the sign, you would know what to expect going to Chernobyl. The sign itself, by the way, was actually erected in 1983 before the accident. It got repainted a few times, of course. And the funny thing about the sign is that In Ukraine right now, there is a special law called decommunization law. It says that all the signs of the Soviet Union, including the hammer and sickle, are actually illegal. So every year when we have the commemoration day of Chernobyl, administration just covers hammer and sickle with a round plate with the sign of atom or of radiation. And the person who decided to repaint this whole welcome and sign also repainted the hammer and sickle in the traditional communist colors in red. But if you imagine that you close hammer and sickle, let's do it right now. Here we go. The whole welcoming sign is blue and yellow, traditional Ukrainian colors. And at the opposite side, because you might be curious of what was written at the other side, or if you translate it literally, have a happy road. And it also tells us that the distance to Kiev from this welcoming sign and from the town of Chernobyl is 131 kilometers. So leaving the settlement, they would wish you to have a nice road. So that was Kate from Chernobyl tour on the live from Chernobyl town. During the quarantine, we were here to work on the new routes. We did a lot today, and we're really looking forward to presenting those new routes to you guys. And see you soon again.